Asinivusele sinemukele lamhla ekseni ehlelweni Kusile Breakfast Show sibonga kakhulu ukuthi nivuke nathi lamhla ekseni tisithupha inyanga ngoBhembedwane umnyaka ngo2022 asibukena ngombiko losuka itiko letempilo. Elangeni layitolo kuhlele abantu labangu-1122 kwatfolakala ukuthi labangu-199 banemkhuhlane i-COVID-19 sishiye abantu lababili itolo emhlabeni kanti labasesibhedlela labelashwako bangu-103 lasebaluleme bangu-513 bese kuthi solo waphethuko lomkhuhlane lasebawutfolile bangu-66,873 lasebashiye emhlabeni bangu-1,320 lasebagome ngalokuphelele bangu-300,775 lasekwenda 25.7 we-total population. Kanti-ke eveni laseNiger emaphoyisa sewabophe umphathi wedolobha laseNiger Mayor lobekahambisana nemshayeli wakhe batfolakala ukuthi bahamba ne-cocaine lenesisindo sa 200 kilograms. Amaphoyisa ke ambophile lo Mayor itolo eNthambama kubekwa ukuthi le cocaine beyiswa eveni laseLibya kanti beyisuka eveni laseMali. Ilicala elikhulu ke leli kanti bemsefa baveta ukuthi lesisindo lesi ngilesikhulu kakhulu solo kwabikwa wona emacala ecocaine kulela live. Kanti ke live lase Hong Kong lona selimemetele ukuthi selivalele emave lasiphohlongo ukuthi angene kulela live emaviki lamabili amavela wafaka ekhathi iAustralia, iCanada kanye neFrance kubala lambalwa. Okuke kulandzela ukuthi kutholakala ihlobo lolusha lomkhuhlane eHong Kong i-Omicron variant. Kanti ke lela live bayachubeka nokucinisa imetamo noma ke imigomo yekulwa nekwanza kwalomkhuhlane. Sibahlola imakethe nasibuya sitabuya netindzaba.
Watch local TV on the go with the Eswatini TV app for only 20 emalangeni. Come on. Do the most with Eswatini TV app. Download from Google Play Store or App Store.
We're good together. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Asifenze sinemukele ehlelweni Kusile Breakfast Show sitawungena etindzaba entetfu. Lachobitelako ayachubeka nekucambata ingoma letinsha asachubeka nemsebenti wamakhosi lokuhlakula emasimu ebukhosi lokubonakala ngesikhathi emajaha agitsa yinye yaletingoma ensimini ebukhosi imfabamfu lapho bekachubeka khona nemsebenti elangeni langalwesithathu.
Manyenti emahlandla lapho khona silo ingonyama yemaswati inkosi emswati wesithathu sikhotsate emajaha ukuthi yacambe tingoma letinsha kusukela kuqalile ukuhlakulwa kwamasimu ebukhosi sekube khona leto tingoma letinsha laticambile emajaha letethwele imilayeto leyahlukahlukene yinya letingoma letinsha lethi lelive liyahlonishwa icanjwe ngemajaha ngalwesithathu. Kanti-ke elangeni lesithathu waqala ukuhlakula imfabantu lacobetelako akhombe umfutho lomkhulu enda umsebenzi loncomekako aludla alishwabdzela Noma imfa abantu kungiyona nsimi yebukhosi lebanti, umgqumo wemajaha ubemuhle njengoba engalwesine akabuyeli kule nsimi yebukhosi. Esigodlweni engabezweni emajaha alahle injobo aseyathola ne-order yangelanga lelilandzelako lokulanga langa lwesine.
Majaha kusasa ingabave iya enkembeni lutsitsi luya kuMasibeke.
Lobika kwendzabeni ngisandile Makhanya naThemba Mamba esigodlweni engabezweni.
Kodwa uthi kushaya lesibili evikini lelitako tikolwa titobe time ngemumo kwemukela abantwana kanti lokhu kufaka ekhathi tikolwa letalimala kulandzela imisindvo leke yabakhona eveni kanye naleto letalimatwa siphepho. Mabhalanelo omkhulu etiko letemfundvo Bheki Gama uthi endzabeni yeluhlelo lwemfundvo yamahala emabangeni laphansi i-free primary education hulumende sewubhadele imali lengu-41 million emalangeni ku-50 million emalangeni lekubheke ukuthi yabhadalwe.
Siphepho lesatfulwa live kanye nemsindo leke yabakhona kuleli kwashiya tikolwa letinyenti tingekho esimeni lesihle. Libandla letindvuna tembuso laphuma layohlola simo lapho labuya nembiko lowuthi tikolwa tilimele. Mabhalanelo omkhulu etiko letemfundo kanye nekuceceshwa Bheki Gama uchaza ngekuthi tikolwa tikulungele yini kubuya kwebafundzi.
Problem lokuthi phela kunama construction companies there. And vele inature yawo bayavala ngalokuthi sema district lewa mlo. Otherwise lelitiko on the ground everywhere tabe khona kwendeka. Kusekuqalile kuleli viki qale Monday ingqubeko yalitinzayo. Siyathemba ukuthi by Tuesday tabe sekufunzeka le tikolwa. Yes, and then letnyeke vele setawulungizwa sikhashana manje baba baya esikoleni njoba nathi siku lokuvula kwetikolo solohamba ngale rotation njengoba vele siyenda ngeke ngibe sure ngale percentage but then sure ngakho sathi exactly ukuthi ufuna sendeni kusinye nakusinye isikole sine report yakhona lapho kulesi nalesi into ufuna sikwende tosathatha sesigana.
Gama uthi kubhadalwa kwemali ye-free primary education kuhamba kahle kodwa kuphathanyiswa bothishela nhloko labangagcwalisi kahle emaphepha uthi imali letigisi letini lebese ibhadele kumele ijikiswe ngalezi zathu.
Solo sinawo ama challenges etikolweni ngeke ngasemplisha nje itikolo ezomhlola nanami ukuthi yini lokwenda ukuthi bangabhadaleki on time. Manje ukuthi itikolo nje ngoba selisinukwazi iphini yemibala kaphelele. Ase sihambe yonke le process nasifika lapha kubhadala khona ukuthi lo mntwana aka exist because the numbers athi siyathatha inombolo tephini tibangana kwathi kaphelele lokunye ukwazi ukuthi sikolo angibeke umbala lo repeater grade 7 nje fana ka repeater umbala ngabonakala ngasibhadala kwesibili bonakala ukuthi no beka ufail level masimbolo zakhe beka kanje kwathi abakwafaka ngoba simbolo so bese balikhulu ukuthi kubhadalwe leso sikolo bese lesikolo ukwazi kube sipetshwena letinye tikolo letting that affect katongo lesikolo ngana ngimunye lo longa checkisisi ukuthi ufaka kahle amaphini ufake yonke information letsengako la khathi.
Gama ucizelela ukuthi bonke bothishela kubheke ukuthi babe sesikolweni kute batawusita abafundzi lekumele babhale lihlolo lwangephandle kanelibhuku lelikhomba ukuthi bothishela bayeta enditawunakwa. Gama uthi laba ngeke bethe batawubanjwela imali yeliholo no work no pay. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Fortune Dlangamandla ngisembabane.
Litiko letemfundvo lithi lenda tonke taba kucinisekisa ukuthi tikolwa tinabothishela labenele kepha kutawubonakala nakuvula tikolwa evikini lelitako ukuthi ngutiphi tikolwa letisashota ngabothishela. Lokhu kuvetwe ngumabhalane lomkhulu kuleli tiko Bheka igama nakachaza ngokuthi itikolwa tilungile kanganani ukuthi tivule kulomnyaka.
Ngenyanga yenhlaba eminyakeni lophelile litiko letemfundo nalivele embikwelibandla lelibuke kusebenta kwetimali tembuso iPublic Accounts Committee yeParliament lavetwa kwekuthi lihlela kucasha bothishela labangema300. Mabhalane lomkhulu kuleli tiko Bheka igama uthi batendile taba tekucasha bothishela.
Yabona kwendeka ukhweza isikole nje sijwayele sinathola bothishela kusibabhizi ngani yangingi. So nasekhona munye lo sangekho sekuthiwa kude bothishela. So lesikwendaka uthi ukuhlola kusinyalo nakathi uyashoda sesiya ngetinyawo sohlala ushoda ngani lekuphi. So yendeka malula ke lemvulo leyo lana kuvulwe itikolo. Kuloko besishoda ngakho bekungithi silitiko sicabanga ukuthi sakwenda sabafaka bothishela. Kodwa ke kungendeka ukuthi nithi nendisisile bese kuba khona sinye noma timbili lingakazi vele kwala kushoda mbamba. But isicela sisiye sihlole ukuthi vele kude mbamba yalothishela noma kukhona lokhathi akasebenzi enough noma class lamabili kanye ngabona 4 sibukele into tonke lethu sine program yoku right size alesenda ngoba sikhaze ukuthi letikolo avubanene kube nje bekungasi usemagama etikolo ngowasho sike sake lesinyanga ngala mawaya kaho ngakunothela ho but ayiledu sakhaza simbe i-primary yakhona lama class kuba na 15 ka A kuba na 13 ka B nge-A na B lo yabona bahamba bona bo bahlanganisa abantu 29 labanga which means it's actually ngabe linye le class le so sabwele njengaka lama anomalies la njengalango so that we can take those teachers bafake labathi yakho ngilapho so siyabona sishoda ngababi
Kama uthi bothishela inhloko labanenkinga yekushoda kwabothishela etikolweni tabo abaqhumane nelitiko. Etindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Nelson ngamandla ngina Fortune ngamandla yembabane.
Labasebenta kuthengisa tembatfo tetikolwa endzaweni yakaSetco embabane bathi kuvulwa kwetikolwa kulomnyaka kude umthelela lomuhle ebhizinisini yabo. Labathengisi bathi eminyakeni lengcile kuvulwa kwetikolwa ngenyanga yaBhimbidvwane bekubashiya banemali kodwa kulomnyaka akusiko njalo.
Bekuyaye kuthi njalo kusuka ngenyanga yangengongoni kanye nangenyanga yaBhimbidvwane nakumele kuvulwe itikolo bosomabhizinisi labaphilisa ngekuthengisa ama-uniform esikolo endzaweni yabosomabhizinisi labancane embabane kaSetco bebahlekelela bodwana ababheke ebhange kodwa bathi kuvula kwetikolo kwalonyaka sililo sodwa njengalokuthi imali lengenako.
Bathenga buthi bathayi kakhulu nalabathenga kongeleti bashile. Otherwise kakhulu sithengisela laba ema-private school nje kusokonke kusemile umehluko kumkhulu kakhulu because kufana nokuthi nje sihledi vele umkhulu kakhulu umehluko because nathi sitayile ukuthi ngaJanuary asithengisi sitayile ukuthi ngaJanuary kuba nale back to school but ke info ishintshile i-back to school seyiyozibe nga-April
kucalile 2019 kwehla 2020 kwaba kubi nyalo kubi kakhulu wakwambona Setco adry kanje ngoJanuary kuthi wakusasa kuyo esikolweni but nje sithembe enkulunkulu bekuthi labantu bakaSetco basibeketelele mangibuka lela sisuka khona kude longamela na into lebayimele nathi asisathi ukuthi sibheka phinyalo nekiye ekhaya ngiyacabanga ukuthi mashona ekasi yakufa because business efile asati man besicela uNkulunkulu ngoba nasingacela abantu ngeke.
Unfortunately this year si affecteke kakhulu because so far si said this year nje kusede laba ke ba order I think there are less than 10 because of COVID and also because of the political unrest lekhona in the country. So nalo doubt I think parents bayadoubt ukuthi ingabe kahle nyalo batawuchubeka or what. So nathi as ama suppliers ema school uniforms siya affecteka in that way because kugcina sekubade loba interested in buying our products.
Labo bosomabhizinisi bathi labanyenti bebakade basebenta nabo sebavale emabhizinisi njengalokho solo kwacubuka umkhuhlane weCovid-19 ngeminyaka wa2019 kanye futhi nemsindo lehle ivela kuleli lebanga ukuthi itikolo ativirus futhi kude imali labayakhako tindzabente Eswatini TV ubika Fortune dlangamandla nginathemba inkosi Mavimbela sisembabane.
Umphathi welibandla lelibuketi indzaba temandi emaveni lamathatfu South Africa, Eswatini neMozambique, Trevor Shongwe uthi cisho onke emadamu kulamave lamathatfu sekagcwele kanti lokho sekutawubanga nekuthi emandi yakhululelwe emifuleni. Shongwe uthi sekunelidamu lesibili eliseningizimu Afrika leselidvute nekugcwala lelicithela emfuleni ingwemphisi lelitawenda ukuthi lo mfula walapha eveni ugcwale kakhulu.
Ngalesibili lo msakato lona ubike ukuthi live leningizimu Afrika selivulele emanti edamini lelibitwa ngokuthi yi-Morgan Stand njengoba seligcwele kakhulu. Lamanti lawa akeletela emfuleni ingwemphisi lapha eveni kanti enda lo mfula ugole tinsethe. Umphathi welibandla lelasungulwa amave lamathatfu lokuya eSwatini, iningizimu Afrika kanye neMozambique lelibuketa indzaba temanti kulamave lamathatfu. Trevor Shongwe uthi sekunalelinye lidamu leseligcwala eningizimu Afrika nalo lelicithela engwemphisi.
Emadamu ke-South Africa langenhla kwelive laKangwane sekagcwele. Agcwele-ke i-South Africa seyisende i-warning kakhulu nje-ke emndzaweni noma-ke lidamini le-Haysop lelisemfuleni wemkhondvo. Sive sakuleyo ndzawo noma kuleyo mfula kufanele sale sicaphela kakhulu ngoba sebawavulile emagede laba beSkhwahlande. Kuthi njenge-New Year's Eve bawavule emagede because nabo ba-receive a lot of rain. Lokhu kusho ukuthi umfula wemkhonto uzophakeme kakhulu nyalo. Unfortunately kuleso sikhathi leso kukhanzakala nemadamu noma lidamu linye lesengwemphisi lokuyi-Morgan Stand nalo seligcwele sebawavulele emagede emanti sekangena Kangwane engwemphisi. Engwemphisi-ke kunemadamu lamabili kune-Jericho bese kuba ne-Morgan Stand. I-Jericho wena isengagcwali iku-93%. Lokho shothi nayo seyidudane ukuthi igcwale nakungagcwala-ke nanayo sekataba maningi kakhulu emanti latawungena engwemphisi. Lokho shothi sivele singakangwane kufanele bese siyacaphela kwanyalo vele ayaphakama emanti engwemphisi ngoba leli linye sebalivulile. Sitawube sesiyenyuka mhlawumbe siyenkomati. Enkomati-ke vele siyathi maguga wakangwane sowachitheka ngekuthi emadamu langenhla kwe-South Africa avele aspilisha before siye kukhisimusi aphakama emanti emfuleni wenkomati. Ayakhona-ke ukuthi eMozambique abambeke ngokuthi eMozambique athi nakayongena khona engca edamini labathi ikurumane-ke kwanyalo isengagcwali. Sikhuluma nje namuhla iku-49.5%. Lokho shothi iMozambique isengayiva le-effect yenkomati because emanti ayabambeka lapha ekurumane. Phindze futhi na emanti achamuka ngendase ngowavuma noma-ke ephongola-ke nakhona iMozambique isengayiva i-effect ephongola lokhanza ukuthi ichamuka eSouth Africa most of the time yona isengagcwali iku-63%. Lokusho ukuthi sawabamba lamanti.
Shongwe uthi nathi ingachubeka timvula kungagcina kufika isikhathi lapho sekude lapho lamanti angagcinwa khona. Lokhu kutawubanga ukuthi lamanti abheke eMozambique agcinele elwandle nalo lolutase luyaphakama. Tindzabeni Eswatini TV kubika Themkosi Mavimbela embabane.
Sihlalo welibandla letincola letitfala sive Sihlangu-Hlabathi uthi njengoba itikolo ativulwa evikini lelitako tonke timotolo letitfala sive atibuyele emgwacweni kube bete letihamba emalanga latsite njengoba kwenteka kuletinye tindzawo njengoba lokho kutawukhinyabeta bagibeli. Hlabathi uthi bachubi baletincola abasebente balandzele timphepha tabo.
Njengoba tikolo ativulwa evikini lelitako lokhu kusho ukuthi sivele sitawudzinga tincola letetfwala sive naso sitawukhula. Sihlalo welibandla letincola letetfwala sive i-National Road Transportation Council Sihlangu-Hlabathi uthi bashayeli baletincola babuyele ngalokuphelele emgwacweni.
Ukhona-ke umkhuba lokhona vele eveni emadolobheni lamanye kakhulu asembabane nasenhlangano. Kunetinkhebe sesititfola nje kungakavulwa tikola ngidawubekisa nje nangemzila losuke embabane uye besiphoqosini emhlambanyatsi bese kunesikhalelo esikhulu ukuthi bantu bayasala etiteshini labanye bantu imoto bese tijika esiphoqosini adisayi emhlambanyatsi ngokuthi imoto setijakele kubuyele emumva bantu bayeme emarenkini bafike ebusuku emakhaya. Singaba kuveta nje nekucondzisa ukuthi ihulumende sokuvulile cishe lokuningi ekuphileni kwebhizinisi kwani konke nje nalo kusebenza emini sekuvulekile naseke kuvulekele itikola kusho ukuthi sesibiyele ezingeni lebesebenza ngalo itolo kusete iCovid. Singaba kucela nje ukuthi wonke umuntu lo wa-apply leyo permit wasethi awuhamba kuleyo mzila. Sicela ukuthi kube ngcono ukuthi sibiyele emgwaqweni. Singagongonyi labantu lesiyacela le permit ukuthi sithi awuhamba siyosebenza. Kungaceleka nje Nkosi yami ukuthi sisasebenza siyathi ukuthi sifo se-COVID-19 asikapheli nemithetho welive usesekhona ukuthi bantu nabangena etimotweni kufanele basanitize, bantu bangadli, bantu bafake lawo ma-mask.
Hlabathi uthi leli bandla litawukwenda sonke isiciniseko kwekuthi imigomo yekuvikela kwanza kwemkhuhlane i-COVID-19 ilandzeleleka ngalokuphelele. Etindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Nelisiwendla ngamandla nginambongwa Dube kaManzini.
Chief Ndladlaza Ndwandwe sewumangalele sakhamuti sasemavula lekuthiwa sakha ngaphandle kwemvumo elibandla lakhona kuleya ndzawo. Sakhamuti kuthiwa sinalomunye umuti kepha besifuna kuvusa tindzala takubo. Libandla lemphakathi belisayibuka lendzaba. Chief Ndladlaza sewufuna inkantolo ekhiphe isijubo lesitawuphocelela lesakhamuti ukuthi singachubeki nekwakha lendzaba isatekwa ebandleni.
Chief Ndladlaza Ndwandwe sewumangalele Makagula losakhamuti sasemavula. Makagula kuthiwa wakha ngengani kumavula noma sekatsheliwe ukuthi indzaba yakhe isabukwa libandla. Emaphepha senkantolo aveta ukuthi Makagula wacela ebandleni lasemavula kuvusa tindzala takubo ngenyanga yeNyoni eminyakeni lophelile. Leli bandla kuthiwa lathi lisayoyibuka lendzaba letanayo libuka nekuthi vele le tindzala takubo mbamba yini Makagula. Ngenyanga yeNgongoni kuthiwa Makagula wabonakala sekahlobisa lendzawo ayifensela waphindze wacala nekwakha ngaphandle kwemphendvulo lebeyibuya kuleli bandla. Kuthiwa leli bandla lathumela emaphoyisa emango emahlandla lamabili ukuthi akhulume naMakagula ukuthi eme kwakha kodwa wangawalaleli. Indvuna yemcuba yaseTfundini Gideon Gumedze ithi umphakathi wathumela libandla lelalihamba nemaphoyisa ukuthi liyokhulumisana naMakagula futhi. Gumedze utshele inkantolo ukuthi Makagula watshela leli bandla ukuthi angamane afe kunekuthi ayekele kwakha. Gumedze utshele inkantolo ukuthi lokhu lokwentiwa nguMakagula kutawukhutsata umoya wekungawulandzeli umtsetfo kube nasibonelo lesibi emmangweni. Kumanje Ndwandwe ufuna inkantolo imise Makagula ukuthi achubeke nekwakha kulendzawo lelekukhulunywa ngayo ize lendzaba iphele kutekwa libandla lasemavula. Ndwandwe ufuna nekuthi inkantolo iphocelele emaphoyisa ukuthi asite ekutheni lesijubo sihlonipheke. Tindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Themkosi Mavimbela enkantolo lenkulu.
Basolwa labasihlanu ecaleni lekubulawa kwemuntu endzaweni yakaliba sebafaka isicelo sokutokela ngaphandle enkantolo lenkulu. Labasolwa basolakala ukuthi bashaya umufi waze wafa ngelilanga lelilandzela Khisimusi. Labasolwa bathi abazange bakwenda lokhu kanti futhi bataliphika nalelicala.
Ngelilanga lelalandzela Khisimusi Phinda Gamedze washaywa sicuku sebantfu kaliba emanyonyaneni. Gamedze wagcine ashonile kwaboshwa basolwa labasihlanu. Laba bo Ayanda Hlatshwako loneminyaka lengu-30, Jerome Dlamini loneminyaka lengu-57, Sincamiso Shabango loneminyaka lengu-36, Madoda Gwebu loneminyaka lengu-36 kanye na Thami Mzebele loneminyaka lengu-30. Labasolwa ababoshwa ngemaphoyisa akaHlatsi babekwa licala lekubulala. Labasolwa sebafake isicelo sekutokela ngaphandle enkantolo lenkulu. Kulesicelo sabo bonke bathi abalendanga lelicala lababekwe lona kanti futhi bataliphika noma selitekwa. Kulesicelo sebheyili Hlatshwako utshele inkantolo ukuthi ngalelilanga lalesigameko bebahamba babuya ebholeni bakhanza umufi ashaya lijaha lelingumajaha Shabangu ngesagila. Lomsolwa uchubeke wathi bedama kulamula kodwa umufi bekangakhuteki. Hlatshwako utshele inkantolo ukuthi kwabese kuba nesicuku lesita sitolwisa umufi lochazwe njengesigebengu lebese sicocodzele. Lo msolwa utshele inkantolo nokuthi umufi wakhipha sibhamu noko kwaba khona lokhona kumemuka angasakhoni nekudubula umuntu ngaso. Hlatshwako uchaze nokuthi lesicuku sabese sishaya umufi. Wengete nekuthi emaphoyisa aphuta kufika kutolandza Kamedze nasekashaywe ngulesive noko umkhandza asaphila. Sicelo salabasolwa sibhekeke ukuthi singene enkantolo lenkulu masinyane kanti kulendzaba bamelelwe nguRaymond Mwelase. Tindzabeni teSwatini TV kubika Themkosi Mavimbela enkantolo lenkulu.
Iqembu leGreen Mamba lithole emakhadi labovu lamabili nalikhala phansi kuvovovo ngemagoli lamathathu kulinye emidlalweni we-MTN Premier League lodlalelwe eMayaluka eBig Bend itolo eNzambama.
Iqembu le-4-4 litfolane neGreen Mamba emidlalweni lebewuhlehlisiwe. Lo mdlalo udlalelwe eMayaluka eBig Bend lapho ilanga belishisa kakhulu khona. Esigabeni sekuqala kubonakele ukuthi lokushisa kunemthelela lemibi kuwo lo mdlalo njengalokhu kude lokwentekile esigabeni sekuqala diseta ikhefini selokhu kutilingene ngelicanza icanzene. Kube sesigabeni sesibili lapho khona umdlalo uqale kushisa khona ngoba lithe lisuka yabe livalela ikhathi 4-4. Akaphela isikhathi lesinganani ngemva kwalokho yaphinza lelinye ebese livele lisuka emlotheni. Kuchubeke nawe kuyibhedzela iGreen Mamba nayitfola likhadi lelibovu. Kuyisebentele ke lokho i4-4 njengoba ihlasele njalo yade yatfola lelinye lenalo lebese lisuka khona emlotheni. Akajabuli kamceceshi weGreen Mamba ngendlela nompempe beka uphethe ngayo umdlalo. Lokugcina kumenda ukuthi athole likhadi lelibovu njengalokhu bekakhuda ngendlela nompempe ladlalisa ngayo lo mdlalo. Ikhonile ke nonke ukuthola lekubika ke lelo lishaye soyophela umdlalo iGreen Mamba umdlalo lokugcina uphele ngawo lamathathu kulinye. Umceceshi weqembu le4-4 Caleb Ngwenya uthi bekumcokwa kuncoba lo mdlalo.
Yeah, it's very important. It's very important. 2 losses in a row and coming back and win. It's good for the morale. Yeah.
Kanilisekela lomceceshi weGreen Mamba Sifiso Dlamini yena ubeke kanjena.
Yeah, he did get a red card, but well, that's part of football. The referees decide whatever behavior is there in the field, even though noma ngabe idaslimata, but that's how it is. I cannot comment about the
emidlalweni lolandzelako lamaqembu i4-4 itotfolana nemilingi ukuthi iGreen Mamba itholane neMalandi yombili emidlalo itodlalelwa ePrince of Wales ngelisonto. Lobikela umsakazo weSwatini TV kutemidlalo ngiphathizwe Msibi eMayaluka eBig Bend.
Siphethe lapho tindzaba tetfu lomhla ekseni yasipohlelo timakethe nasibuya sitawubuka letho lethamba imbili kulamanye emave.
Pay your TV license quickly and easily with MTN Momo. Simply dial *007 *3 hash and select option 8 for TV license. Enter your national ID number as your reference and the amount you wish to pay. Then enter your PIN to confirm your payment. Once your payment has been made, you'll receive a confirmation SMS of your payment. If you're a first-time payer, you get another SMS for your TV license. So legalize your entertainment from the comfort of your home. Pay your TV license the easy and convenient way with MTN Momo.
Everywhere you go, MTN.
Intuthuko leKhonsile yintuthuko lesuka phansi emimangweni usosive lesinesidingeko sayo ingene emiphakathini kuboba betikhulu ikhulunyiswe ibusiswe enkundleni nasesifundzeni ite iyofika kuhulumende lowabatimali tekusukumisa leyo misebenzi yentuthuko nenhlalakahle. Bukela luhlelo sive siyathuthuka kubona imisebenzi lesukunyiswe ngaphansi kweluphiko lwahulumende lekwakha takhiwo letisekelwe ngetimali tahulumende i-microprojects kanye na-Regional Development Fund. Lolu hlelo lutawungena njalo ngalesine nga-8:30 p.m. kusihlwa nangalesihlanu ekseni nga-9:30 a.m. Sive siyathuthuka, intuthuko yetinkundla, intuthuko yemaswali.
I do the most. Watch local TV on the go with the Eswatini TV app for only 20 emalangeni per month. Do the most with Eswatini TV app. Download from Google Play Store or App Store.
We're good together. Everywhere you go, MTN.
Asibenze sinimukele ehlelweni Kusile breakfast show sibonga kakhulu ukuthi nihlelisene nathi sivusele nawo losanza kusivulela lesikhathi sidabuka leto lethamba embili kulamanye imave sawuqala eveni lasemelika lapho khona mengameli Joe Biden socela ukuthi kungetwe emaphilisi lango 10 million aka Pfizer ekulapha umkhuhlane COVID-19 sekutowenda ukuthi emaphilisi lasathengiwe so far kulela live abe ngo 20 million.
Residents of Washington, D.C. turned out for a snowball fight earlier this week, a sign of normalcy in a winter marked by soaring COVID-19 cases in the United States yet again. Fueled by the Omicron variant, on Monday the nation's coronavirus cases reached a world record of 1 million detected in 24 hours, according to a report by the Johns Hopkins University.
Today, I'm directing my team to work with Pfizer to double our order from 10 million to 20 million treatment courses to be delivered in the months ahead.
On Tuesday, President Joe Biden outlined his administration strategy to address Omicron. In addition to buying more Pfizer COVID-19 pills, he promised to make booster shots and testing more widely available. With Americans having to wait in long lines to get tested, Biden has been blamed for delays and shortages. His administration has not given details on the distribution of the promised 500 million free at-home test kits. Testing is considered key to limit Omicron spread and reduce hospitalization.
We can't do very much about inhibiting the spread of this extraordinarily contagious virus. And if it only produces mild disease, we could, if you will, quote, tolerate that while we try to continue to prevent these hospitalizations.
More evidence is emerging that Omicron causes milder symptoms than previous variants, in some places resulting in lower death rates despite soaring case numbers.
We are seeing more and more studies pointing out that Omicron is infecting the upper part of the body, unlike other ones, the lung, who have been causing severe pneumonia. It can be a good news, but we really require more studies to prove that.
The U.S. has donated more than 315 million vaccine doses globally, while pledging a total of 1.2 billion doses. Yet some health experts say wealthy nations are not doing enough to vaccinate the world and prevent the emergence of new variants.
Until we redouble our commitment to vaccinate the African continent, Southeast Asia, and Latin America, we're always going to have this problem. And that's what has to be prioritized. And so far, neither the U.S. government or the G7 countries have really made that commitment.
On Monday, U.S. health authorities approved Pfizer's booster shot for children as young as 12, with a final approval expected in the coming days.
Live lase-India selicale kujovisa abantwana labaneminyaka leli-15 kuya eshumini nesiphohlongo kulandzela kunyuka kwemibiko yebantfu labatfola umkhuhlane i-COVID.
There was enthusiasm and a sense of relief as India began vaccinating teenagers, 15 to 18-year-olds for COVID-19 this week.
I feel confident that with the vaccine, I feel I can go out. When I went to school, I used to feel so scared that I may fall sick and carry the infection to my parents and neighborhood.
The inoculation drive for youngsters began amid an exponential jump in COVID-19 cases in mega cities like Delhi and Mumbai. The looming third wave of the pandemic due to the Omicron variant has created fresh anxieties in a country where school closures lasted for nearly a year and a half, longer than in much of the world. But just months after resuming in-person classes, schools have again shut.
Online school, it gets lonely and all, so schools being in person is always much more fun and everything, so I'm looking forward to it when it's safe.
Calls have been growing to protect youngsters in a country with the largest adolescent population in the world. 2/3 of India's adults have been fully vaccinated, while 90% have received one jab.
Sooner or later, a wider population need to be vaccinated, especially in the context like India, where adults constitute only 63% of the total population, unlike some other countries such as Europe and other settings where adults are around 80% of population.
The ramped-up vaccinations are raising hopes that India will not experience the devastation triggered by the Delta variant last year, when hospitals were overwhelmed and there were crippling shortages of oxygen. At that time, much of the country was not vaccinated. This time, experts expect less pressure on medical services.
Unlike Delta wave, where high proportion of individuals who were detected to have infection would require hospitalization, oxygen, ICU, etc. In Omicron, with the current evidence, it says that infection is mostly mild and severe disease is mostly linked to the pre-existing high-risk condition or unvaccinated individual.
That's raising hopes among some students yearning to get back to a semblance of normalcy.
I was bored sitting at home. It was really nice when we went back to school, and it was so difficult to study at home.
I want schools to reopen so that I can again get back into the habit of studying.
In India, school closures due to the pandemic have affected nearly 200 million children.
Kanti eveni laseSudan ama-protests solo ayaqhubeka kanti kunjalo emaphoyisa kanye namasotsha azama konke lokusemandleni awo ngokuthi acithe ama-protesters ngekuthi adubule i-tear gas.
Security forces fired tear gas into a crowd of protesters in Khartoum as tens of thousands of anti-coup protesters took to the streets in cities across Sudan.
The protesters are facing off against the state. You can hear the sound of those on the front lines being fired on. They're facing this abuse for the sake of a free, peaceful, and just state.
Fueling the most recent wave of unrest, the resignation of Sudanese Prime Minister Abdallah Hamdok on Sunday. He was ousted in the October coup, only to be reinstated a month later in a deal with the military. But Hamdok was unable to form a cabinet, saying he couldn't reach a compromise between the ruling generals and pro-democracy leaders. The uprising is similar to a movement that ousted longtime autocrat Omar al-Bashir 2 years ago. Now protesters are hoping the same kind of pressure can bring about a return to civilian rule.
Our three present demands after the coup are no negotiations, no partnership, no compromise. That's in addition to the demands of the revolution, which are freedom, peace, and justice.
Elections in Sudan are scheduled for July of 2023, and the opposition is calling for a civilian government to lead the transitional period. But the military generals have rejected those demands and continued their deadly crackdown. Dozens of protesters have been killed since the October coup.
Kanti ke naseveni laseKhaza kunebamvula abatoyitoyako nakhona ngesizathu sokuthi kunyuke petrol. Ngameli wakulela live somemetele simo lesiphuthumako kulandzela ukuthi uhulumende abeke ematombo phasi.
It's a relatively rare sight in the Central Asian nation of Kazakhstan. Thousands of protesters flood the streets of Almaty, the country's largest city. It was just the latest round of demonstrations over a hike in fuel prices. In a bid to quell the unrest, the Kazakh president accepted his cabinet's resignation, ordering the new government to regulate prices of fuel and other goods deemed socially important. Since last weekend, protesters have braved sub-zero temperatures across the country to demand the price of liquefied gas, which doubled in a matter of days, be decreased. As the protests gradually widened their demands to include the government's resignation, President Kassym-Jomart Tokayev imposed a 2-week state of emergency in several cities, vowing to punish rioters.
Дорогие соотечественники, вновь обращаюсь к вам проявить благоразумие и не поддаваться на провокации изнутри и извне, эйфории митинговщины и вседозволенности. Призывы атаковать служебные помещения гражданских и военных ведомств являются абсолютно незаконными. Это преступление, за которым может последовать наказание.
Later Wednesday, the president is nonetheless expected to hold a government meeting to discuss the protesters' remaining demands.
Kanti eveni lase-France mengameli Emmanuel Macron so memidele ukuthi utawuphocelela sive sase-France ukuthi siwugomela umkhuhlane we-COVID-19 ngenkani baze bajove.
With COVID cases at their highest ever levels, Emmanuel Macron's government is frantically trying to pass new restrictions through parliament. But slangy comments he made about hassling the lives of the unvaccinated in a newspaper interview have sparked uproar from some MPs. His health minister took to the floor to defend the president's words.
If you read Wednesday's interview with President Macron in detail, you will see that the intention behind the move is to protect the public. We've been debating for 2 days about people who aren't vaccinated and are at risk, but we have nearly 300,000 cases today. So I think the urgent thing now is to find solutions to protect people.
Eventually, the noise caused by some MPs was so great that the session was suspended until Wednesday afternoon, seriously putting in jeopardy the government's implementation date of January 15th. The main item put forward is the morphing of the country's health passport into a vaccine passport, meaning that for those hoping to enter a leisure site such as a restaurant, a negative test would no longer suffice. Around 90% of French people are fully vaccinated, but the emergence of the highly infectious Omicron variant has seen infections soar to their highest ever levels, with hospitalizations also on the rise.
Kanti eveni lasemelika labo supporters a Donald Trump lafike yahlasela eCapitol ngeminyaka wa 2020 solo amela kutekwa kwemacala abo.
1 year later, there are still questions about the January 6th insurrection at the U.S. Capitol and who was ultimately responsible for the worst attack on the seat of Congress in 2 centuries. Many of former President Trump's supporters claim the breach was not serious, while critics say Trump directed his supporters to overturn Joe Biden's election victory, effectively undermining the democratic process. Rioters roamed the halls of the Capitol building, raising security concerns for lawmakers and staffers who were preparing to certify Biden's election victory.
I'll never forgive former President of the United States and his lackeys and his bullies that he sent to the Capitol for the trauma that what was exerted on our staff.
The U.S. House of Representatives moved swiftly to impeach Trump just days after the riot, alleging he was guilty of inciting the insurrection. But the U.S. Senate acquitted the former president of that charge in February 2021.
He is hereby acquitted.
Lawmakers have held numerous hearings on the security failures of that day. In late June, the U.S. House formed a special select committee to investigate the actions of then-President Trump. The panel has issued subpoenas to compel former White House officials and Trump campaign staff to testify about the president's actions that day and the days leading up to the attack.
Find Mark Randall Meadows in contempt of Congress.
The committee is expected to release a report on its investigation before the November 2022 midterm elections, but the findings are not legally binding. In the U.S. courts, 704 individuals have been charged at the federal level with offenses ranging from misdemeanor trespassing charges to more serious charges, including violence against law enforcement and members of the media. Researchers estimate about 70 to 80 individuals involved in militant networks face even more serious charges of conspiracy.
These are the hierarchical domestic violent extremist groups, the Proud Boys, the Oath Keepers, some 3%ers mixed in there, who are alleged to have not just gone to the Capitol to see the speech, to protest, to march, but with a concerted conspiracy ranging from the collection of funds, the dispersal of weapons, of marching up the steps of the Capitol in a stack formation, to leaving guns at a Virginia hotel.
5 people present at the January 6th riot died. The question still being debated is whether the chaos developed spontaneously or was part of a planned insurrection directed by the then President of the United States.
Mengameli welive lase-Turkey uthi ufuna ukuphinza ngenele lukhetho lwamengameli ngeminyaka wa-2023 kanti ama-analysts wona athi inkinga lenkulu latawubhekana nayo kokuthi awine tinhlitiyo tebantfu labasha.
In Istanbul's central Beşiktaş district, male football fans and feminist protesters mingle uneasily. But during this time of economic turmoil and toughening restrictions on individual freedoms, they have more in common than meets the eye. As members of the younger generation, they feel pressured.
We feel the effects of the economic crisis deeply, but also at the same time as young women, we feel the increasing pressure on our lives.
Inflation is soaring and youth unemployment is nearly 30%.
The main issue in Turkey is now the economy. Our money keeps losing its value. Our economy is getting worse. I do not think things will get better soon unless the government changes. We've had the same government for 18 years.
A recent poll found young voters are unhappy not only about the economy, but about growing limits on freedom of expression and authoritarian rule.
They are finding it increasingly difficult to look into the future and be hopeful. So they sort of have this resentment towards the current system. They are not looking for a savior. And I think that's a bit different from their parents in the sense that they see themselves as saviors. So, you know, they want to take part in civil society, they want to bring their own solutions to the table.
Turkish President Recep Tayyip Erdogan has vowed to create a loyal, pious generation during his rule by expanding religious schools. Young people have also grown up with mainstream media controlled by Erdogan supporters. But they rely more on social media. The perception among young voters is that the government is failing to address critical issues, thereby thwarting Erdogan's aspirations, say some analysts.
It is really difficult to control 100% the whole population. But also it's because the problems of the young generation are there. The problems of the education system is there. The problem of youth unemployment is there.
Young people who voted 3-1 in support of Ekrem İmamoğlu, a charismatic centre-left politician, in Istanbul's mayoral election 2 years ago, helped end Erdogan's party's 25-year hold on the city. Erdogan has been posting videos on social media and holding meetings with the young as part of a bid to win their support. But polls indicate young people are skeptical, not just of Erdogan, but of all political parties, meaning the opposition leaders have plenty of work to do.
Kanti idolobha lase-Beijing seliqalile kwenda emalungiselelo emidlalo ye-Olympic Winter Games.
The stage is set for the 2022 Winter Olympics. Thousands of athletes from around the world will soon come to China to compete, this time during a new global surge of COVID-19. As finishing touches are made to the sprawling 3 sites that will host the Games, Chinese officials have announced a strict protocol to prevent the spread of the virus.
The 3 sites of the competition, Beijing, Yanqing and Zhangjiakou, will function as separate zones. The Olympic sites and residential facilities in each zone, including space for the media, will all operate as a closed-loop bubble of protection.
The athletes themselves have to meet strict requirements. They must show proof of vaccination completed at least 14 days prior to their arrival, no contact with the public, and daily PCR tests. International spectators are already banned from the Games, and if locals are allowed, it's expected to be limited. Meanwhile, the Chinese government has taken drastic steps domestically, implementing what it calls a zero-COVID policy, leading to the lockdown of some 14 million people in the cities of Xi'an and Yuzhou. With the Omicron variant circulating at a staggering pace, and with the world watching, China hopes that drastic steps will keep the virus from becoming a game changer.
Kanti kuseke umsimvo kokuthi umdlali wetennis Djokovic bamvumele ukuthi aqhubeke ne-Australian Open kodwa angakawugomeli umkhuhlane COVID-19.
It's official. Novak Djokovic is going to Melbourne to take part in the first Grand Slam of the year. The Serbian tennis player said on social media,
"I've spent fantastic quality time with my loved ones over the break, and today I'm heading down under with an exemption permission. Let's go 2022.
There's been much speculation over whether the 34-year-old would be able to compete for his 10th Australian Open title. Back in April of 2020, Djokovic caused controversy over the question of compulsory vaccines. In an interview with Serbian media, he said, "Personally, I am against vaccination and I wouldn't want to be forced by someone to take a vaccine in order to travel." He contracted COVID-19 after hosting a sporting event that was criticised for lax protocols. Since then, he has continually refused to reveal his vaccination status. The Melbourne tournament's organisers had stipulated that all participants must be vaccinated against the virus or have a medical exemption granted by an independent panel of experts. Tennis Australia says not one but two panels of experts, including one appointed by the Victorian Department of Health, gave their green light after a rigorous review process. Not everyone seems convinced, including fellow lower-ranked tennis players.
I think if it was me that wasn't vaccinated, I wouldn't be getting an exemption. Well done, well done to him for getting cleared to come to Australia and compete.
At the end of the day, you kind of have to trust that he does have a valid reason for the medical exemption. That's all you can say about it, really, isn't it?
While Djokovic applied for a medical exemption, French tennis player Pierre-Hugues Herbert, who won the 2019 Australian doubles title, decided to skip the tournament this year after refusing to get a COVID jab.
Idolobha lase-Venice lase-Italy selincome kokuthi selitababhadalisa ama-tourist lafis lela dolobha kanti lokhu kungenhloso yokunciphisa inombolo yebantfu labavakashela lona leli dolobha.
Streets and squares packed with tourists. Some 100,000 people visit Venice every year, but officials say the city can no longer handle that. So a quota system is being set up to limit the number of tourists. Starting this year, people interested in visiting Venice for the day will have to buy a ticket. No ticket, no access to the historic city center. The gates are already in place.
Je pense que c'est une bonne idée parce que ça permet des visites beaucoup plus calmes et ça permet aussi de pouvoir contempler toute l'architecture qui se trouve devant nous.
Comme toutes les villes touristiques, il y a du monde, donc à partir de ce moment-là, ça reste libre d'accès. Je vois pas pourquoi ce serait limité. C'est bien dommage en tout cas.
Contrariamente a quanti dicono che sembrerebbe un Luna Park, non è vero, questo è solo per proteggerla, d'altronde le cose per proteggerla non possono venire maree di turisti.
To manage the new system, 500 cameras have been installed on the city streets. They can count the number of people walking around. The police chief can also establish the identity of people in real time, thanks to data from cell phones.
Che chi sono, sempre dati in forma anonima aggregata, sono 977 stranieri, 800 italiani, di cui 135 residenti, 139 pendolari.
The system will let Venice's 50,000 residents and those who work in the city circulate freely. Venice's deputy mayor for tourism has been spearheading the initiative.
Lo scopo è quello di disincentivare un turismo giornaliero, tra virgolette mordi e fuggi, che arriva in giornata e va via in giornata, in qualche modo anche affaticando e stressando la città, incentivando invece un turismo più lento.
Tourists staying in one of Venice's hotels are exempt from the need to buy a day pass.
Kanti lesikhathi sitayeveni lase-China sibuke wona ema-policy changes kokuthi anamthelela muni kuma-industries emhlabeni wonke.
The Chinese government has instituted a series of policy changes this year that affect a wide range of industries in the country and around the world. The tech sector is one major focus of reforms. China is limiting what data companies can gather from users and how the data is stored. The day after China's Personal Information Protection Law went into effect, On November 1st, online giant Yahoo announced its services would no longer be accessible in China, citing what the company called the increasingly challenging business and legal environment in the country. It is also calling on e-commerce and social media platforms to stay away from using software that tempts users to spend a lot of money or use money that would disrupt public order. While some governments, like El Salvador, are encouraging the use of cryptocurrency, China has made all cryptocurrency-related business illegal and warned that transactions that originate outside China using cryptocurrency will also be seen as breaking the law. Experts say large-scale Chinese miners of cryptocurrency, such as Bitcoin and Ethereum, will take their high-powered servers abroad. China has had a growing concern about young people becoming addicted to video games, and for years has tried to counter the influence of gaming. Now regulators are putting time limits in place for players under the age of 18. Young gamers are allowed to play only on Fridays, Saturdays, and Sundays from 8 to 9 p.m. And it is gaming companies, not parents, who are in charge of enforcing the rules. In the wider entertainment industry, Chinese authorities have told broadcasters to reject artists who express what they deem incorrect political positions and to cap the pay of celebrities. China has sought to address excesses in celebrity fan culture by barring the publication of popularity lists and regulating the sale of celebrity merchandise to fans. One result of these changes in the entertainment industry is that some filmmakers outside China are scaling back projects in the potentially lucrative Chinese market. Regulators have instituted a number of child welfare laws, including barring internet companies from advertising addictive products and services to minors. Schools are now to avoid assigning students too much homework, and tutoring centers must register as non-profits while also being barred from raising capital from foreign entities.
It's 2 minutes before 8 o'clock. Sitiphethe lapho tindzaba tetfu takulamanye emave. Sibonga kakhulu ukuthi isolo nihleli nathi kusukela ngayo insimbi yesikhombisa. Kulesikhathi imbukeli sesivele siyanivalelisa. Sesembe ukuthi indaba nelusuku loluhle nalolubusisekile. Nisale kahle.